Hi, my love. Welcome to the Gemma Hanley podcast. My name is Gemma. I'm your host. This is the space where I have honest conversations about overcoming anxiety and overwhelm so that you can calm your nervous system and feel really confident and happy and calm from within yourself. Along the way, I share my own stories of holistically healing 23 years of anxiety and depression myself. And so if you're a woman seeking answers to perfectionism, people-pleasing, burnout, resistance, you may love, you're in the right place. Let's do it. Let's begin. And before we begin, I want to pay my respects and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land upon which I am recording from, which is the Gubbi Gubbi tribe. And I want to extend that acknowledgement to their elders, past, present, and emerging, as well as anybody of Indigenous or Torres Strait Islander heritage watching this replay. Hey, beautiful, gorgeous woman. Welcome back to the Gemma Hanley podcast. Thrilled to have you here listening. Today, I am feeling fine. Damn fine, I should say. It's been one of those days where creativity is flowing. So I'm very, 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 very excited to bring this conversation and have been enjoying that the rain is falling, the sky is cloudy, which means we're sitting at a more comfortable temperature, probably somewhere around the mid-30s, but the sun is not blasting in on me in my predominantly west-facing house. So that is exciting. The waterfall is flowing outside my window, down the mountain. So what a vibe and what a setting to bring this conversation, really. I couldn't ask for more. Oh, one that I think any honest human being will be able to relate to. And definitely this conversation actually forms part of or a piece of the free training that I'm running next week called Solving Self-Sabotage. So if you enjoyed this conversation, you're probably definitely going to enjoy the expanded version of it with lots of helpful hints surrounding it in that training. I want to talk to you about the start-stop cycle, the frustrating start-stop cycle that shows up when we step outside of our comfort zone. So we might pick a new habit. We might identify something that isn't working for us or something that we want to elevate, up level, upgrade in our life, or maybe it's even a goal. And so it's not something that we know is going to transform immediately, like a smaller habit might. But it forms part of our greater vision that maybe we're working towards over a 3-month, a 6-month, a 12-month period. And the ball starts rolling. The wheels on the cart start rolling. We start heading in a good direction. It's maybe even feeling pretty good. We're feeling inspired. We're feeling motivated. We're feeling connected. We're feeling enthusiastic. And then at some point in time, the wheels just fall off and the ball stops rolling. And we find ourselves slipping back into old ways of being, which can feel extremely frustrating and really defeating. And, if you're anything like me in the past, for me, that felt like every time that happened, that felt like to me just like another piece of evidence on this massive stack or this massive pile of accumulated evidence as to why something wasn't possible for me, why it wasn't going to happen for me, why it's harder for me, it's easier for everybody else. Some people are just luckier and, maybe there's something wrong with me, or I really just felt at a loss as to why I was trying so fucking hard and some habits or some goals just weren't sticking, or I wasn't progressing forwards with them, even though I was really, really trying. And it felt like a genuine desire of mine. So that's the conversation we're going to have. I'm going to divide this conversation up into 3 sections. Yeah. So I've talked about this being like a start-stop cycle. I'm going to divide it up into start, stop, and then start and stay consistent, and talk about what's happening in each of these stages and really just help you to understand that and to become more familiar, because when you can see these signs, it's easier to respond to them in a different way. So the ball doesn't stop rolling and the wheels don't fall off the cart. This can show up in literally every area of life. Like it could be exercise, it could be a nutrition plan, it could be setting new boundaries. Maybe you're wanting to expand the edges in your intimate relationship and in intimacy. Maybe you're starting a new business. Yeah, or maybe you're creating a career shift. Maybe you have decided, I've had enough with overspending or being a shopaholic. I covered that topic in the last podcast episode. And these are the new money habits or spending habits or saving habits that I want to create and I want to follow through on. Maybe it's a habit of meditating. Yeah, you are able to be consistent with that for a little period of time, but then it just slips away or it begins to feel really challenging. Maybe it is taking a lunch break every day and creating that as part of your self-care ritual, right? Or making sure that you have regular holidays booked or time off or weekends away. Maybe it's been that you've made a choice that you want to put yourself in new environments consistently, even if that means attending events or going places on your own, because you've identified it's really important to you that you meet more people and surround yourself with more people that see the world in a similar way to you. You have similar values. So there's a whole list of examples of how this can show up and where we might see ourselves start and jump aboard a habit and then it starts to fade. So take your pick, really. And I'm sure, for a lot of you listening, you won't have to think too hard to be able to identify where this might be showing up for you. So let's start with the start of this pattern or this cycle, the start-stop cycle. So the reason we start, like, why is it that we can feel so energized and so motivated and so inspired to create a change, to arrive to this place where we just feel like defeated and deflated and like it's not possible for us, or maybe even so afraid and so confused and so overwhelmed and so perplexed about like, where do I even go to next? What is the next step? And how do people even achieve this? Because right now I'm just feeling like I'm spinning out of control and I'm so anxious and I'm so panicky and my self-talk and my self-doubt is out of control and it's spiraling and I just need to step out of this for a second, right? How do we go from feeling so connected to a new habit or a new goal and starting it to ending up there? We start because we've connected to a heart desire. So we've identified something that feels really compelling to us. Yeah, and if I was to describe that feeling in the body, it might be like we have this, I often get this feeling of like a surge through my chest or through my heart, or like a pulling towards something, or an excitement in my body. Yeah, like something that lights me up inside when I think about it. Even if I have no idea how to get there, the thought of having that as part of my reality is something that feels pretty fucking good. And so our heart has this desire, but we're also, in order for us to access that and for it to be coming from our heart, it's something we're actually connected to. And when we feel connected, as opposed to disconnected or conflicted, when we feel connected, we do feel motivated. We feel inspired. And so as long as that feeling of connection maintains, it's really easy to start and it's really easy to keep going. And connection can take many forms. And this might be one of the first things that really expands your awareness and activates your curious and creative brain, right? Because connection, yes, can be the form of creativity or being in action, being in implementation, right? So right now, I'm in the start, or not even the start, but the start of this episode, but I'm in the momentum, I'm in the motivation, I'm in the implementation. I shared at the start of this podcast, I've had a very creative day. So it's flowing through me, right? that is one way that we get to feel connected, of like, oh yeah, this feels really good. This feels really inspired. This feels really easy. This feels very in tune and connected. However, when our body is asking us to find connection through more of the being expressions or being activities as opposed to doing, that can feel really unfamiliar. And for a lot of us, we won't have the ability to tie the being activities into the forwards motion, right? So maybe a being activity is rest. Maybe more of a being activity is intuitive dance. Maybe more of a being activity is meditation. And I'm imagining, and this was true for me in the past, that some of you listening might hear those things and think like, oh, that's just getting in the way. That takes up, there's no time for that. How could dancing intuitively and letting my body lead me through movement, how could sitting down and pausing to meditate, stopping the doing, stopping the checking off of things on my task list, how does that move me forwards? Right? Resting? You're trying to tell me that resting is connected to me progressing in my business, that resting is connected to me following a nutrition plan that feels aligned, that resting is connected to me being able to set and honor and follow through on boundaries. It's a foreign concept, and then, it's a foreign concept, and yet, yes. Because it's when we feel connected to ourselves as opposed to disconnected or conflicted. So this feeling of like internal chaos or internal overwhelm. That's when we have the ability and the resilience to be able to continue with things that feel new, unfamiliar, uncertain, unknown, challenging, and hard. And inevitably, if you're a woman who has a big vision for her life, you'll be stepping out of your comfort zone, and the new habits that you want and the new goals or the vision that you're working towards creating, they're going to be significantly different to what you've done or what you've had in the past. And so who you need to be to get there does feel uncertain and unfamiliar. Yeah. And so it's this learning and rewiring of our neurology and our brain and our thinking of all the different ways we can create a feeling of connection internally and to ourselves that actually enable us to not only start, but continue with a new habit as well. And we're going to talk more about like the continuation part in step 3. But I really just wanted to cover like where the starting comes from. Because I think when it gets hard, and we'll move into the stop section of this conversation in a moment, when it gets hard and we question if we should stop, if we should give up, some of what can also appear is thinking like, oh, like, is this really that important? Do I really want this? Is this going to be worth it? Oh, if it's this hard, is it going to be worth it? Like, I didn't know it was going to ask this of me. And so then we can, ask, why was this ever important to me? Or like, where did this come from? And being able to attune back into the truth of it being an expression of the real you that has you feeling like life is progressing, that you're moving forwards to living a full life. It's really important to be able to tap back and tune into that when it gets hard. So that's where the start comes from. That's what motivates the start. The stop. Yeah. Which is probably familiar. Yeah. The stop comes because the nervous system is demanding safety. Yeah, it's demanding a feeling of safe and familiar. What's known, what's certain, what feels in control. That's what the nervous system is craving, because your tolerance level for discomfort or uncertainty has been met. Yeah. And so this can show up as self-doubt. This can show up as questioning whether something is possible for you. This can show up as a feeling of procrastination, resistance, avoidance, distracting, ignoring, sabotaging, creating drama, like amplifying something, making something bigger than what it actually is. Attaching to reasons and excuses because they feel safe. Oh, I can't do this because of that. The reason they can do it and I can't is because of this. So really starting to hide behind reasons and excuses to create this safety barrier. So it's not bad and wrong that we're hiding behind reasons and excuses. That's part of what's going to form this conversation. It's actually this craving for safety. And a lot of that will be coming from our inner child. So our past imprints, our past subconscious programming and patterning, maybe experiences of trauma, limiting beliefs that have been acquired in the past. And it's our inner child, that piece, that part of our subconscious. I speak of having a tantrum, right? Like she is pleading and begging for you to abandon the project. Abandon the habit, abandon the vision, abandon the goal because it feels so unsafe, where it's such a high risk of failing, where it's such a high risk of being laughed at and ridiculed, where it's such a high risk of being rejected and then not having access to love and connection and having perhaps, our worst nightmare come true of learning that we're not good enough, we're not worthy, we're not valuable, we're not significant. And so it's a very strong safety mechanism that kicks into play. And so often misunderstood, right? One of my favorite sayings is hard does not equal wrong. And so many of us are showing up in this world and operating from this perspective that, like, if something's really hard, oh, well, I guess it's just not meant to be. I tried it and it didn't work out for me. If something's really hard, must not be in alignment for me. Must not be right for me. I must be meant to do something else. And this can become so painful because what happens is you meet that need of your nervous system to go into safety and familiarity by abandoning the project, because there's other ways that we can create safety and familiarity. But the most known way is just like abandon, step away, stop creating this unfamiliar, uncertain, unknown, uncomfortable territory and just go back to what we know. Even though we might not like it, at least we know it. And so the reason this becomes really painful is once you have regulated your nervous system by using that approach of abandon the project and you're feeling calm again, and eventually you come back into connection again, of course, that desire of your heart didn't go anywhere. It was just disguised by fear. And so that desire of your heart starts to rise again and starts to appear again because it feels safe enough, right? And the thinking of most women, this is what I observe after working with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of women in this. What I observe is that they then think, oh, it must have just been the plan I was using, like the strategy that I was using. I must just need like a better tool, or like a better strategy going forwards. And so the focus then goes to that. And then when the stop shows up again, the blame goes to that as well. And so this start-stop happens. And there's this hyper focus that I see appearing of like, I just need a better plan. I just need a better strategy. And I just need to be more motivated. And then this is going to come together for me. Like, this is just going to work for me because I know how much I want it now. When the truth is, often they've already had the strategy. It might have even been the first plan or strategy they used. But actually, the nervous system awareness and the nervous system healing was the missing puzzle piece. And that's what creates the shift out of the start-stop cycle and into the start and stay continuous cycle. Before I chat about that, I just want to speak about this analogy, this image, like a meme almost, that I came across years and years ago and was really useful for me as I was healing and recovering from anxiety, depression, chronic fatigue syndrome. And there were two rows to this image. And in the top row, there was this miner, and he had like a tool, like a pick, and he was like tunneling through this cave. And he'd been tunneling for quite a while and he was getting exhausted and starting to feel defeated. And so he hooked his tool over his shoulder and he turned around and he started walking back. And what he couldn't see is that if he had of just mined and dug out the cave just a little bit further and lengthened his tunnel, maybe even like a meter longer, he was going to hit this massive jewel. Yeah. The exact thing that he had been working so hard and efforting and pouring his time, his energy, his love, his attention, his soul into finding and creating for himself, right? And he was so close, but because he'd hit that stop part of the stop-start cycle, he'd turned around to return to what was safe and what was familiar instead. And then underneath it was the same tunnel with a different miner who had continued to carve out and continued to grind away at the cave, using his tool. And he reached the point where he got this jewel. It might have even been that the first guy was like turning around right as he was about to find it, and the other guy was actually like doing the last little bit of digging that was going to get him there. And it just showed the contrast of a start-stop cycle versus a start and stay continuous cycle, right? Because when we're doing something we've never done before, which I've done over and over and over again for 10 plus years now, living life outside of my comfort zone. And I can tell you it's like at that peak moment of questioning and wondering if it's going to be worth it, and maybe starting to review things that you start to pop out the other side. Yeah, just when you feel like your resilience is maybe starting to wear thin. Yeah. So let's start talking about the start and stay consistent, because there's 4 different things that I've identified you need to be aware of, and you actually need to be willing to accept if you want to live a life that's outside of your comfort zone, and if you want to create a life where you're experiencing new things, where you evolve, where you expand, where you up level, right? The first is acknowledging that discomfort is going to be part of it, right? So I'm a big believer that the purpose of our existence is to evolve. And if we knew every step in terms of what to do, how long it was going to take, how easy or hard it was going to be, who could come with us, who we'd have to let go of, where we would need to take risks or leaps of faith, all
all of that information, if we knew that, there would be no evolution. There'd be no growth in that, right? Because it's all known, it's all easy. You're not having to learn to trust yourself. You're not having to learn to open your heart. You're not having to learn how to sit with difficulty and challenges and build and expand the resilience that you have. You're not having to learn how to question, which boxes that I've been living in are mine and that feel true for me, or which boxes have been given to me. And I've put myself in them because it makes other people happy, but actually it makes me really miserable. You definitely are not having to learn how to have hard and honest conversations. Yeah. And so discomfort is part of it. And you may have heard me speak about the analogy of the field of growth before. Yeah, so if you imagine a footy or a soccer field where you're stepping onto that field and it's territory you've never played in before. Yeah. So maybe the shape of the ball is something completely unfamiliar to you. Maybe you're not even aware which end your goals are at. So you don't even know which end yet you're trying to move the ball down towards. Yeah. Maybe you're not even familiar with your teammates. So you're not sure which people, are going to help you move forwards and that are able to build you up and uplift and celebrate and really enjoy seeing you in all of your brilliance, and which people are going to struggle with that and want to try and pull you down or minimize you or challenge your boundaries and make things more difficult for you. Yeah. So when we realize that life is forever going to present these fields of growth where we're stepping onto a new game we haven't played before, and it's going to feel challenging. It's going to feel uncertain, unknown. We're going to be the beginner. We're going to be the learner. We're going to drop some balls. We're going to get tackled to the ground. We might even head into the direction of the opposition's goals before our own sometimes. But the more time we are able to spend on that field with a curious mind and an open mind and a willingness to make mistakes so that we can learn and grow, the more familiar it actually becomes and the more safe it actually becomes. So we don't need to retreat to the old ways of being because the new ways are starting to become safe and familiar as well. But that's the first piece, is we need to acknowledge discomfort is definitely part of it. And that's definitely not something I was taught, right? And it's not something that I feel is modeled back to us. It's like, if you're someone who's meant to be successful, if you're somebody who's meant to be doing XYZ, that'll happen for you. Yeah. Because not many people speak about hard things. Not many people share about difficult things. The second thing is, not only does this discomfort or being on the field of growth form an essential part of the start and stay consistent cycle, it actually holds the exact way forwards. So when you're having that experience in your nervous system of fight, flight, flee, fawn, yeah, like panic or constriction, or you're feeling paralyzed, or you're feeling so overwhelmed that you just feel like you can't cope and that you need to take a step back and you need to go back to the old way. If we can bring curiosity to that, that is a powerful place to be. Because in that moment of nervous system stimulation, information and data is actually being revealed to us, and it's really a very high quality. Yeah. It is showing us where there is a pattern or a program or an imprint within our nervous system that is not in alignment with where we want to go. It conflicts with it. right? Which is a brilliant thing. Because when we can accurately and precisely pinpoint what that pattern or what that program is in our subconscious, we then have the exact data we need to work with, to understand, and to do some healing work around. Yeah. So that we can change it. We can switch that out once we've understood it and once we've done the healing work, right? When we skip over or bypass that step, it's like trying to put a band-aid on a broken arm. Yeah, there's more to it than that. But yeah, if we can begin to see our discomfort as actually like a light shining on the exact piece of information we need to create the change. And that piece of information might be hard to look at sometimes. Yeah. Our ego can get in the way of that. I just want to be right. I just want to be perfect. So it's not okay for me to look at any pieces that are maybe holding me back, are maybe getting in the way of me being able to play on this field of growth and become the best on the field. Right. So it's the deconditioning that if I doubt myself, if I feel afraid, if it feels hard, if it feels uncertain, if it feels like a risk, if it might ruffle some feathers, if it might not please and impress other people, even though it could please and impress me, then it's bad, it's wrong, it should just be left alone and swept under the rug, right? It's the deconditioning of that, and instead the reconditioning or the reprogramming, rewiring of discomfort is shining a light on exactly what needs to be healed, so I can let go of the subconscious programming that conflicts with where I want to go. Yeah. Now that can be like a root belief of I'm not good enough, I'm failing, there must be something wrong with me. Or it could be an imprint of trauma. It could be something that we've, like a perception that we've taken away from a past event, and we're not even consciously, so logically aware of it, right? So when I started a business, I'm sure I've definitely shared this on the podcast before, but I'll share it again. One of the things that created this stop in my nervous system of this, like, oh my gosh, I'm so unsafe. This is so risky. I feel like I'm going to die. Not literally, but the nervous system reaction was a full fight, flight, flee, fawn response. There was such distrust around my ability to make good financial decisions, and to provide a level of value that women would want to pay for and that I would deem worthy of being paid for, that it felt like I would end up homeless. It felt like I would end up on the streets, right? Because no one would buy from me, or I wouldn't have the ability to create an offering or create a service experience that was worthy of being paid for. Now, logically, I had a skill set that paid easily 6 figures, right? And so at some point in time before I ended up homeless, I could have just gone and gotten a job again. But in my nervous system, it felt completely different, right? And so it's part of this too, is the distinguishing between the neurology and like the mindset and the storytelling and the ability to make logical sense of that, which is important, but then also the nervous system, and what's happening in the body, and validating how important looking at that is as well. Yeah, with healing tools. So yeah, acknowledging discomfort is part of it. Acknowledging discomfort is pointing. It's actually showing you what needs to be looked at. And there's no easier time to be able to hear that or feel that or notice that from within you than when you're in the peak of that pain, right? Like your self-talk is probably going to be screaming it at you, or your behaviors are going to be showing it to you, right? Something else that we need for the start and stay consistent cycle are tools to regulate the nervous system, right? And so, like I said, beyond mindset reframes, beyond a plan or a strategy. Yeah, so I mentioned how it can often be the inner child that is pleading and begging for you to abandon the project. Well, that's going to require us to know how to connect with our inner child and reparent her. Yeah. And this can take some time. If we have lived an entire lifetime and now stand here today as an adult woman, from the imprints and the programming that were given to us in childhood and all of the life experiences we've created since then from those same imprints. And there's been no reparenting of your inner child around her insecurities, around her greatest fears of rejection, of losing love and connection, of not being valued, of being shunned, yeah, of being cast aside, then there's going to be some consistent inner child nurturing that's required there. That's just one example. Also the ability to know what to do with, when this fear is coming up, or when frustration and anger is coming up, or when resentment is coming up, or when despair is coming up. Yeah. When shame is coming up, when guilt is coming up. If you don't know what to do with those emotions that are being stimulated by you stepping out of your comfort zone and into a new habit, into a new goal or vision for your life, of course you're going to need to retreat to the old way. Yeah, because that is your coping mechanism. That is how you regulate. That is how you take care of yourself, even though it requires you to abandon the project. So we definitely need to have practices and tools for how we manage doing this, right? And then the other thing that has been absolutely integral and key for myself, and I just see it in real time with the women inside Reveal and Rise as well, in this intimate space as they witness each other and love on each other and celebrate each other in their vulnerabilities and in their growth and in their hard and honest conversations, is surrounding yourself with other people who have already done what it is that you want to do. Yeah. So that habit that you're wanting to embed as your natural state of being, or that goal or that vision that you're going after, and you want that to be your normal everyday life. Like it's just like the back of your hand. You don't even think about how to do it because it's already here and it just rolls out for you. Yeah. Surrounding yourself with people who have that, have proven results in that, but also other people who are unquestionably, undeniably showing up, yeah, owning when they've accidentally slipped back into reasons and excuses and being the victim and feeling sorry for themselves and saying like, oh, okay, I was hiding behind that excuse for a minute there. We're going to let that go, right? Oh, I've been bunkering down in my pity party for the last 2 weeks. I'm ready to come back out and step into my queen energy and step into my power and take responsibility for my life. Yeah. So people who are doing it so that you don't feel like you're the only one. And what this actually gives you is a feeling of belonging, a feeling of solidarity, a feeling that you're not going crazy, that whilst you might be the black sheep in your family and in the circles that you have found yourself in up until now, you're not a black sheep in the entire world or in the entire collective. There are many, 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 many people and women who are evolving and craving the same changes in their lives as you are as well. Yeah, super important. It's like being able to it's almost like this energetic exchange. So inside Reveal and Rise, one of the 3 ways I coach you personally every single week, so it's individualized, is that we have a separate private chat as well as the private community and then the live coaching calls as well. And in the private chat, we only spend time in that space on a Monday, and we use it to set up our week, right? And so there's 5 or 6 really specific short questions I ask the women, and they report in on. Yeah. And what that does is it gives me insight in a very clear, specific, sharp way immediately what is going on in this woman's world and how can I support her best. And so often when women come to me, what they think they need is accountability. I need accountability, I need structure, I need a plan, I need a strategy. And so I create the space where, yes, you have the opportunity to be accountable to yourself. I can't force you to show up into that space. So therefore, I'm not holding you accountable. But what is actually happening is there's a shared energetic there where there's an energy of commitment. There's an energy of motivation. There's an energy of aspiration, enthusiasm, evolution, expansion, connection, love, belonging, acceptance, right? And so automatically you want to be in that space. And yet no one individual woman in that space, including myself, is creating that energetic. It's all of us there creating it with and for each other. And it's an extremely powerful thing to be a part of. And it's one of the reasons I continue to engage coaches in my life as well, especially, in business. So that's just to finish up on that last point there. So the 4 things in terms of creating a start and stay consistent cycle, we need to acknowledge it's going to be uncomfortable, and that's not a sign for you to exit or abandon. Yeah. We need to acknowledge that the discomfort is shining the light on the exact thing that needs your attention, that needs to change, that needs to be healed, so that your subconscious programming becomes a match for this habit being seamless, for this goal and vision being your reality. We need tools to regulate the nervous system, beyond reframes, beyond a plan, so that when that normal and appropriate discomfort shows up, and when you start exploring it to find out the accurate and precise function of the pattern that needs to be healed, you've got the ability to not only tolerate, the fear, the overwhelm, the panic, the anxiety, the uncertainty, the self-doubt, but to actually move through it and release it and come out the other side, right? Because if you have to sit in fight, flight, flee, fawn to figure out all of this stuff, it isn't going to happen. That's why the start-stop cycle is there, right? And then you also need to surround yourself with other people that are continuously providing you with evidence of what is possible, and that you get to feel connected with, you get to feel seen and heard and understood by, and you get to see yourself in them as well. Yeah, so that you don't feel like you're alone. You don't feel like there's something wrong with you. You get to realize the truth that you're growing and evolving, and it's fucking beautiful. So, going to leave this episode here. As I said, this ties into so much of what I'm covering in my training that runs live next week, Solving Self-Sabotage. So if this has landed, if this resonates, you'll find a link below. There's some more information probably about to play on the end of this episode, but I would love to host you in the space.
Thank you for being here for this conversation, my love. If you would like more free resources, if you'd like to learn about my programs or coaching opportunities, you can find all of that information at my website, gemmahanley.com. I'll link it below in the show notes. And if you would like to connect daily, head over and find me on Instagram. My handle there is Gemma E. Hanley, and I reply to all of my DMs there personally. If you enjoyed this episode and found it valuable, please share it with someone. You never know who needs to hear one little thing to take their day from feeling stuck and heavy to light and free. See you on the next one.